Leo's life was a collection of suitcases, cold hallways, and silent goodbyes. At 7 years old, he had learned that the only constant in his existence was uncertainty. The uncertainty of the next home, the next family, the next unfulfilled promise. His luggage was light, but his heart was heavy, filled with memories of faces that welcomed him for a while and then, inevitably, returned him to the system. That morning, he boarded the bus with the same resignation as always. The foster care agency had told him he was going to his new home in the big city, to live with a family that was waiting for him. He no longer believed in waiting or in expectations. He sat by the window and watched the world pass in a gray blur, his small rolling suitcase between his knees. Miles away, the house of Clara and Miguel was a sanctuary of silence. It was a beautiful house, lovingly designed and tastefully decorated. There was a nursery painted a soft blue, and a small swing hanging on the back porch, swaying gently in the wind. But beneath the beauty, there was a profound sadness. Clara and Miguel had been married for over a decade, and after countless painful attempts and expensive treatments, they had accepted the cruelest truth. They couldn't have biological children. Infertility was a shadow that loomed over their lives, suffocating their joy and leaving an emptiness in their chests that no furniture or paint could fill. They had tried adoption. Twice. Both attempts had failed in the final stages, leaving their hearts in pieces. After the last disappointment, they decided to take a break. The pain was unbearable. They loved each other deeply, but the absence of the child had transformed their love into a melancholic stillness. That day, they were sitting on the porch in silence, just watching the leaves move, unaware that fate was about to knock on their door in a completely unexpected way. The bus stopped on the tree-lined street. The social worker, Ms. Lucia, looked at the address on her paper and at the elegant house in front of her, house number 12, with the teal-painted door. Everything seemed correct. She took Leo's small hand, helped him off the bus, and knocked on the door. The door opened, and Clara and Miguel exchanged a surprised glance. They weren't expecting anyone. "Hello, good morning," the social worker said with a warm smile. "I'm Lucia from a foster care agency. This is Leo. Are Mr. and Mrs. Johnson home?" Clara and Miguel recoiled, confused. "Johnson?" Miguel asked, frowning. "I'm sorry, you must have a wrong address. We're the Millers. We aren't expecting a child." Lucia's smile vanished. She looked at her paper, then at the house, then at Leo. Her eyes widened. A cold sweat ran down her neck. The address was indeed 12. But the last name, it was wrong. "Oh, no? My goodness, what terrible mistake," she muttered, more to herself than to them. "Leo, honey, wait here for a second." She stepped away, pulled out her phone, and began dialing in a panic. Meanwhile, Leo stood on the porch with his little rolling suitcase beside him. Clara and Miguel's hearts, which had been a desert of sadness, suddenly felt a fresh breeze. They looked at the boy. His eyes were large, brown, and filled with silent sadness, but his posture was firm. He held his suitcase with both hands, as if it were the only thing in the world that belonged to him. Without thinking, Clara crouched down. "What's your name, honey?" she asked, in a soft voice she hadn't used in years. "Leo," he replied, his voice low and raspy. "Leo Jones." Miguel crouched beside Clara, a lump in his throat. He saw the pain in Leo's eyes, a pain he knew all too well. It was a pain of rejection, of loneliness. As Lucia spoke frantically on the phone, Leo watched Clara and Miguel, who looked at him with a tenderness he rarely saw. His eyes brightened for a moment, but he quickly hid it. He didn't want to give himself false hope. Lucia hung up the phone and returned with the expression of someone who had just made a catastrophic error. "I'm so sorry, there's been a terrible mistake," she said, visibly shaken. "The family waiting for Leo lives at house number 12 on the next street. I need to take him now." The words fell like a rock on Clara and Miguel's chests. In that instant, they felt the emptiness that had been briefly filled return with full force. Their world seemed about to crumble again, and Leo would be taken away. They couldn't let that happen. Without a second thought, Clara reached out to Leo. "Wait," she said, her voice choked. She looked at Lucia, tears streaming down her face. "Please, wait. Can he stay with us?" "No, please, don't take him." Miguel felt his own tears welling up. He looked at his wife, then at the boy. He knew what he was about to say was the craziest impulse of his life, but it was the only one that felt right. He looked into Leo's eyes and said, his voice raw and broken, "Please, Leo, be our son." Clara's tears fell silently. Lucia's face was in shock. Leo, for the first time in a long time, let go of his suitcase. His small, sad eyes filled with tears, but not of sorrow, of relief and of a hope he had long ago buried. What followed was a dance of bureaucracy, documents, calls to the agency, and meetings with the director. Lucia, at first hesitant, saw the genuine, desperate look in Clara and Miguel's eyes. She saw the love they radiated and knew it was a rare chance. After intense conversations, the agency agreed to allow a trial placement. The legal process took months, but the emotional adoption was immediate. The house, which had been a silent tomb, was filled with the sound of life. The thud of Leo's sneakers on the hardwood floor, his contagious laughter, the loud music he loved to listen to. Clara and Miguel couldn't believe their luck. They rediscovered themselves in parenthood. Clara rediscovered joy in decorating the blue room that finally had an occupant. Miguel, who used to spend hours in silence, now spent his afternoons playing ball with Leo in the yard, teaching him passes and dribbles. Leo's first night in the house was a milestone. He lay down on the clean bed with fresh white sheets and fluffy pillows. Clara sat on the edge of the bed and read him a story about a boy who found his way home. Her voice was choked with emotion. He didn't need her to say a word. The warmth of her hand on his shoulder, the tenderness in her eyes, was all he needed. Their lives were now a succession of firsts. The first Christmas tree they decorated together, with Leo's hands reaching for the highest branches. The first time Leo called them Mom and Dad, in a shy whisper that echoed in their hearts. The first time they went to the beach as a family, building sandcastles and running toward the waves. The mistake of that morning became their family's origin story, a secret they shared that bonded them even more. They never forgot where Leo came from, and they visited the agency to show how loved he was. The director, who had initially been hesitant, watched the family from afar with tears in her eyes, knowing that the bureaucratic error had, in fact, been a miracle. Years passed. Leo grew up, became a happy teenager, and later, a successful adult. He never forgot the wrong house, the error of fate that led him to the most perfect home he could have wished for. Clara and Miguel, who were once a couple living in a quiet sadness, were reborn into a life full of noise, laughter, love, and a son who came to them not by planning, but by a tearful plea that destiny answered. The mistake wasn't a mistake. It was a detour that led them to the most certain thing in their lives.